Hi, I'm Barb.
And I'm Alex.
And we're Enchanterium. In today's video, we'll be collaborating with our doll friends for the annual Mermaid Collab. This time, the theme is Unconventional Mermaids, so let's see what we whip up for this one.
What would be a good doll base for a clam person? A pink one to resemble the flesh? Or maybe a skin tone that looks like a pearl? After a quick look at our stock box, I narrowed the options to Gigi Grant and Perry on Goliath's body. We decided to go with the idea of the doll being a pearl that grows from the clam. So she's actually not a clam maid, but a pearl maid? Anyway, I'm preparing the doll to be a clean canvas. This mix of fiber was left after making Marine, Hell, Poppy, and probably a few different projects, and it's time to finally end their waiting. I rerouted the hair off camera. I just didn't feel like recording that day. I had to focus on spicy scandals amongst the British aristocracy in Downton Abbey. I did a part halfway to be able to put her hair in a high ponytail and still have some of the hair flowing down. This is how it looks after a kettle of hot water. To secure the new hair, I'm pouring a good portion of polymer glue through the neck hole. I'm going to spray the head with a matte sealant several times, so to protect the shine, I'm wrapping her hair with a piece of cloth. After 2 coats of Mr. Super Clear, I can start the face. She's going to be the pearl that grows in the clam, so I want her to have nacre-like parts on the skin. I'm starting from sketching the shape of the pearl effect with a white watercolor pencil and then adding the eyes. Don't pay attention to these eyes, please. I'm going to wipe them off in a moment. But the brows turned out great from the start. You can pay attention to them. When I'm satisfied with the shape of the design, I'm adding colors. I chose cool red, orange, pale yellow, and a bit of green mixed with light blue. This combination will hopefully give me the iridescent effect that nacre has. After a layer of MSC, I'm adding semi-transparent pearl white paint on top to make the colorful lines more pastel looking and to create that gentle shine. When you use acrylic paints, always pay attention to the transparency of the paint. It's usually written on the packaging. When you know the type, you can use them in different ways. Like here, I'm using it on top of something else to glaze the color underneath. It also makes mixing color way easier if you know the type of paint. Here, I tried to add an eyeshadow to the lids, which I ruined by outlining the left one with a pearly paint. I even wanted to rescue these eyes by painting over some parts, but nah, it's better to start over. I'm using acetone to clean the parts I don't like and trying to save as much as I can of the parts that I like. Okay, it looks like we can try to blend the eyes in. After 2 more layers of MSC, I try with the eyes again, this time bigger and more open. I still like the idea of her having a sexy expression, but instead of sassy, I'm going for confidence. You will see later in this video why I keep drawing her eyes turned to the left, but that's the feature I really want to keep. Off camera, I fill the gap on her cheek and around the eye. Now it's the usual eye business, defining the iris and pupil, adding eyelashes, painting the waterline, and adding more light to the iris. I sometimes do these highlight dots on the waterline. I think it's a cute detail and it makes the eye look more wet even if you don't use glossy varnish on top. To darken the lashes, I'm using warm purple acrylic paint. I want to keep her color palette without black because she has very bright skin and hair, and adding such a contrasting color to the face would make it stand out a bit too much. To add a sprinkle of life, I'm painting white lines and catch lights inside the irises. Pearl powder is a must on our doll, especially fantasy-inspired ones. It makes the skin glow and looks magical. You can even add a touch of color to the cheeks if you want. She's so shiny and sparkly. Before we move forward, let's hear a word from this video's sponsor, Skillshare.
Skillshare can help you make 2022 a year of new learning and growth. I found myself falling behind lately, trying to juggle Enchanterium and getting another degree, thinking about opening a store with my sewing patterns, I don't know, living, eating, working out. This has gotten really tough for me lately. So I thought to myself, how about I learn to manage my time a little better? Skillshare to the rescue. I browsed the productivity category on Skillshare and watched the Productivity for Artists, Organizing Yourself for Success class by Brooke Glazer. to see how I could improve my planning skills to feel a little bit more in control of my life. If you too would like to invest in yourself and learn a new skill, Skillshare has a variety of classes to get you started. The first 1,000 people to use the link in our description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and let's get crafting.
Nylon hair ponytails usually have a tendency to look flat on the top of the head. So I'm adding a bulk from silk clay. It adds the volume exactly in the right place without actually adding fiber. When designing this doll, I had a certain idea for a hairstyle in my head. So that's why I rerouted shorter hair to the top part of the head. But at this point, I realized that it probably won't work, and I didn't want to risk it. So an alternative solution came to my mind. I put the hair in a high ponytail and braided it with some of the longer fibers from the bottom part. This way, the short hair is tamed and doesn't stick out to the back in a weird way. I actually redid the braid a few times, so this one is not the final result. You can see some fresh strands that don't lay flat. I found more of the pink hair and added it to the places where the scalp was showing. It's time for the curl. The method is the same as always with nylon fiber. Wrap it around plastic straw and secure it with a bobby pin. Then pour hot water over it and dunk in icy cold water to set the curls. I envisioned this character as more curvy than a regular Monster High doll, so I'm adding more volume to her cleavage with epoxy sculpt. Initially, I went for big size boobs with very round and full shape. I think it would look good if she had clothes on, but I don't plan any clothes. So when it dried, I decided to make them look more natural and bring gravity into the equation. And they look like this, like a ski jump.
I used to make a lot of polymer clay stuff, and I have a load of this stuff left. Here's some colors I'm gonna use this time, but really, I have boxes on boxes of these, all neatly labeled, drying up in my cupboard. Since we need a shell for our clam lady, I thought making it out of this would be 1, using up the stash, 2, sturdy enough, and 3, give me something to do for this project. While this video is out, I'm at a conference for my PhD stuff, so I was busy revising material and making my poster for a competition while this doll had to be made. I'll make it up to you with some more sewing soon, I promise. Since this stuff is pretty hard, I will have to condition it. To start with, I am putting it in a Ziploc bag and relieving my body of any stress or anxiety. This makes the polymers in the clay weaken the knees, and the clay gets softer. I wish I had a spare blender just to zap the clay with some softener or some of that liquid stuff and be done with it. But for how rarely I use the clay, I can't really justify the purchase. Although I somehow justified buying all of the other stuff back then. Moving right along. For the next step in the conditioning process, I need to take out my drawer so I can clamp the pasta machine to the tabletop. Let's get on cranking. The clay is still quite stiff at this point, but it balls up together, so I can repeatedly put it through the pasta machine to make it more pliable. I will just stack it back together and kinda laminate it with itself till it stops cracking majorly. I did that for all of these colors you see here. I'm splitting my batch into 2, as I will need 2 shells. I'm rolling each color into a log, occasionally cleaning it with a wet wipe. I will attempt to make a marbled effect with these colors. It's simple, but I feel like it's a bit of a roulette and you can't control the outcome precisely, which, if you are me, is a big no-no. With more experience, maybe? I am stacking the snakes of clay somewhat randomly. For the second shell, which you will see later, I was a bit more mindful and made less logs. Just trying to get a color variation in the shell here. When all the logs are stuck together, I roll it some more and twist it, and then roll it some more again and twist it but differently. Anyone who's over 2 years old should be able to do this, honestly. I added this one cream bit that I had left over, and this was not a good idea, so I had to roll it some more again. I've compressed the log a bit to make it more wavy, but it didn't really get wavy, the lines were very straight, so I rolled it again. This is my first try, you guys, hang on. When I finally decided that yes, I am done twisting it, I took out my acrylic roller and tried to roll it out to the size I wanted the shell. And here's my biggest mistake. I rolled it in one direction too much. I should have wavied it up, stretched it and whatever, but I made it worse by putting it through the pasta machine and elongating the lines. This totally make it look very artificial in the end. It's pretty, just not for a shell. I 3D printed these shell molds, one is an innie and one is an outie, and to be able to bake these in this domed shell shape, I make an armature for the shell out of tin foil. You never want plastic in your oven. Then I covered the molds with some saran wrap and put the clay sheet on it, also wrong because I accentuated the straightness of the lines by placing them vertically on the shell. I topped it up with the other half of the shell and tried to press them together, which proved harder than I thought. I ended up stepping on this whole thing, and it was the only way I could get an imprint. If it breaks, this is gonna not be great. Let's see if that did anything. It's better. I trimmed around the molds, which was annoying because the saran wrap kept sticking to the clay and catching my knife. I used a ball tool to define some of the ridges a bit more, and then I cleaned the shell with a cotton pad dipped in isopropyl alcohol, which also smoothed the surface. This will be the shell that won't be visible as much as the other one, which turned out so much better. Pierwszy raz włączyłam piekarnik i włączyłam tylko lampkę na godzinę.
No.
A za drugim razem zapomniałam, że wsadziłam je do piekarnika i się piekły 2 godziny.
Geniusz.
No.
Ta ma fajniejszą teksturkę. Whee. The shells look like this, and we're going to use them in a moment, but first let's glue the joints so the legs don't move. I'm going to make the mermaid, or rather CLAMMAID, tail from clay, but to keep the doll lightweight and to save on materials, I'm filling the space between her legs with aluminum foil. Was it okay? Aluminum? Aluminum. Mini. But I realized she's going to be a bit too tall like this, so the feet must go. I'm gluing our footless creature to the shell and adding more of that aluminum foil to create the silhouette I want. I didn't like the spiky knee, and there's only one solution to that. Time for the clay. I'm using epoxy sculpt and start by mixing 2 parts into one homogeneous material. The shape I have in mind is a dress-like clam flesh, like she's growing out of the goo, and I try to achieve that by adding thin pieces of epoxy and smudging it over the foil with some sculpting tools. To make the smooth transition from clay to plastic, I use my finger with a bit of water. After the base shape is dry, I can add some more details. Barb said that the tail looks a bit plain when it's smooth like that, so I'm going to add some bumps and volume. This way it looks more organic and also more like a dress that falls on the floor. And let's leave it overnight to dry. In the morning I can sand it. I have to admit I didn't want to take the Dremel out, because I'm working on a few projects at the same time, and the Dremel makes such a mess. Everything is covered in dust after the sanding session, so I decided to do it by hand. The effect is not as smooth as it could be with a sanding tool, but not having to clean my whole room after it saved me a lot of time. I think I need to invest in a sanding box like Delightful, but that's a plan for the future. I sprayed the clay with MSC, and after it dried, I can start adding life to it. I chose a red to grey gradient with a peach color in the middle. I tried to blend the colors together while they are still wet. It gives the smoothest transition possible. For her hands, I chose Spectra's half-translucent hands, and I just need to adjust the color of the top part to match the rest of the arm. It would be weird if she had the nacre only on her face, so let's add it to the body too. The result is a bit different from the face because of the materials. The paints and pencils behave in a different way on the vinyl head and the plastic body. As the plastic is hard, it takes the pigment very quickly and you don't have to use as many layers as in the vinyl. But there's also difference in shine. I sprayed the head a lot of times during the face-up process, and it makes the texture of the pearly parts a bit different than on the body. I didn't see the point of wasting MSC to do as many layers as I did on the face, so I added some pastels on top to make it look less shiny. After adding a few decorations to the bottom, it's time to reveal the curls. Just take off the bobby pins and untangle the plastic straw and voila! A curl! The big locks can be now split into 2 or 3 parts, and straight ends can be trimmed. During the reroute process, the hairline cracked, and to distract your attention from it, I'm pinning the big flower that looks like it was made from nacre. And some quick accessorizing with a ribbon, pearls, and gold loops. Something was still missing on the flesh part, and Barb suggested more of the stripes and also a wet look. I've mixed glossy varnish with the same pearl white paint I used on her face. Then I mixed the glossy varnish with a bit of red paint and pink Perlex powder and applied it on the bottom part of the tail. It makes the stripes blend better with the flesh and make the doll look moist. Later, I reapplied the pearl string, added a very simple necklace and earrings, and she's ready.
This is how she turned out. I'm so glad we decided to take part in this collaboration. We used up our Mermaid allowance last year, I think. I know I didn't really do much here for this one, but Alex did a splendid job on the details as always, so be nice to her in the comments. We have officially run out of names for our dolls, so if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments down below, and we'll update the title of the video, maybe tomorrow. And if you're craving more unconventional mermaids, be sure to check out our friends' videos. In no particular order: Jackie O, The Hatter Dolls, Kiro's Workshop, Harley's Dollhouse, and Stefu Doll. Their channels are linked in the description down below.
Let's play a mad scientist game. If you could join 2 different creatures, but still in a mermaid theme, what would it be? Maybe you would swap a human part, or maybe a fish part, to some different sea creature. Let us know in the comments down below.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram for some sneak peeks and subscribe for future videos. Have an enchanted day, and we'll see you next time. Bye! Oh! Oh!
No, to było nawet niezłe.